to Interconnected with Jordan. I'm your host, Jordan Saunders, and today's episode is for anyone who's ever had to learn something the hard way, whether in a clinic, a classroom, or while caring for someone you love, without having the right tools, enough time, or the training needed to feel fully prepared. So I am joined by an incredible leader, Brandon, whose career spans over 2 decades across healthcare, education, and innovation, from launching major pharmaceutical products to now directing simulation across the Americas at PHACON. Brandon is helping transform how we train clinicians, including speech language pathologists, not just to know more, but to do better. At PHACON, they create lifelike, handcrafted surgical models based on real medical scans, giving people the opportunity to practice everything from brain surgery to swallowing evaluations using lifelike, anatomically precise tools without needing to work on real patients. So this episode is for you if you're a speech language pathologist, educator, or healthcare provider looking for more hands-on, realistic tools to train with confidence. Maybe you've felt stuck trying to teach or learn complex anatomy like the throat, brain, or voice without access to the right resources. Or maybe you believe advanced learning tools should be within reach, not just for the largest institutions, but also across programs that you may have that are committed to excellence. So I'm excited to dive in with you today, Brandon. First, I would love to know where you are based or located at.
In Atlanta, Georgia.
Awesome. All right. I actually was born in Atlanta. I would love to start with the moment that you knew, because you've worked across pharma, orthopedics, and now medical simulation. That's a wide arc. Was there a moment where it all clicked for you, where you saw how this kind of hands-on lifelike training could change everything about how people learn and care for others?
When I was learning to be an orthopedic rep, total knees, total hips, total shoulders, all that kind of stuff, we were sent down and to a university of Florida and went into their cadaver lab, and there was 30 some odd reps in there on a shoulder, and it was a cadaver, and you're peeking over trying to look to see what's going on, and we knew our trays, we knew the procedure, but we didn't know what's going on in the body, what the doctor is doing. Is it critical for us? I thought it was. And the time I got up to the cadaver, it was completely just, there's nothing left of it. And so it was like, why aren't we doing this ourselves? And we had small sawbones and things like that we could cut on and practice. And it just made a lot of sense to know forwards and backwards what's going on. And that's when I got introduced to this company, and I'm like, holy cow, I mean, this would be an amazing if you could practice on your own in the middle of the night, because everybody learns differently at different times, and if you could just do this, I just need my time, with my models and all that kind of stuff, and that's was the moment where I was just like, this matters. This absolutely matters.
Yeah, you shared something that I even think of just thinking back to grad school as a speech language pathologist and studying to become a speech language pathologist. A lot of this, when you talk about the medical setting, because speech does have where you can go into educational or medical, it's intimidating. And you feel like you do have to get it right, because some of these procedures are very much they are, you're working on the actual patient by the time you get out of grad school. So you shared about PHACON, and it's built so much more than just a model. So it's an artificial surgical patient. You have based on real medical image data. So like CT scans, MRIs, even dental scans when I was reading about all the work that you all are doing. And so it's built to reflect real human tissue like muscles, bones, nerves, and cartilage. And so that's just, it's can be so helpful for surgeons or open the door for speech language pathologists or therapists or even people that are studying to become these different professionals. So can you walk us through what these models are and maybe even bring us into one specific example, like the artificial throat trainer you all created that's ideal for fees, which if anyone that's watching, it's fiberoptic endoscopic evaluation of swallowing training. A mouthful, but yeah. So if you could share a little bit more about that, would be great.
So, yeah, we mainly work with medical device companies. 10% of our business comes from universities, which is largely growing because of fees. Um, what was interesting is we built this throat trainer for a medical device company, and these reps were taking it around to the universities, and the university SLPs were like, "This model's amazing. No, I don't care about your endoscope. Tell me more about this." And they're like, "Oh my gosh." So, so we got kind of moved into that lane, and I'm like, "What the heck is fees training?" And I'm like, "Okay, so you're pushing a scope down." And so one of my first customers that from the University, I think of St. Augustine or something like that, or maybe it was Pace in New York. I was like, "Tell me about this, and like, what's the procedure? What do you do?" And she's like, "Well, typically we do it on volunteers." I'm like, "What? Volunteers? These new people shoving an endoscope down?" I'm like, "Rigid or, they're like rigid." And I'm just like, well, okay, so let's talk about some challenges. And they're like, well, cross-contamination. I'm like, holy cow, cross-contamination. I'm like, somebody always gets sick. And I'm just like, oh, what a liability. From a company perspective, I'm sitting here thinking liability all over the place. So our throat trainer was designed to have all of the landmarks that you would physically see in an endoscope, rigid or flexible. So you're going to see minus the hair in the nose. Can't simulate that, but you'll see the turbinates, and then you progress down to the throat and the epiglottis, and and then the vocal cords, and knowing how that procedure goes allows the SLP to be more confident and be more comfortable and to be less rigid with the patient. And it's it's just a no-brainer to me. I mean, yes, you'll still have to probably pass your final exam on a real person, but at least you're not going to be cross-contaminated, by the way. But yeah, I mean, it's very simplistic. This is with the throat back, but the sinus cassette is where you enter with the endoscope, and it has all the landmarks. And what's neat is that this is like a cassette, and you can pop this cassette and put a new patient in and have sinus polyps, sinusitis, deviated septum, septal perforation. We've done where you have a nair on one side that's impassable and mystery on the other. So for an SLP or any kind of program, you could do a basic 101 where this is how it goes. Are you seeing all your landmarks? And then get crazy in like a 3.0 version where they're like, you have to figure it out. What are you seeing? How are you going to get through? What's the next steps? And that's what you're going to see in clinic. Because Mrs. Thompson, when she sits down, you have no idea what's in there. And how you're going to be able to get back to the back of the throat is your challenge. And to do that with the confidence and the comfort for the patient is critical.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad too that you brought a model so we could see as well. that story, I was laughing to myself when you were talking about the volunteers because that is accurate. When we were in grad school, I remember we were volunteering for each other to
It's,
test this out for the first
I,
time.
what else are you going to do? I mean, it's
Exactly. You work with what you have, and so that is why I love what you all are doing because it does build that confidence and it does allow too these models to be able to have that experience where you can really go hands on as well and feel confident and comfortable too. So we connected during the pandemic. Everything was shut down. We Everything was virtual. So can you take me back to that time frame? Because I believe that when I saw PHACON's tools, it made it possible to keep learning in a way that felt real, tactile, safe. So, what did that moment teach you about how simulation could support not just surgery, but education, especially in fields like speech language pathology or other fields that you came across?
that what an incredible event for us to all to live through. Is just mind boggling to think that even happened, and it feels like it was a century ago, but it's still very new and fresh. But while a lot of people other than landscapers were working and we're all just kind of sitting around wondering what we're supposed to do, that was the most busiest time we've been, because these universities directors were going online and trying to figure out, all right, how do we do this virtually? How do we, and virtually is was okay, but not for SLPs. SLPs is it's hands on. It has to be physical. You have to be doing this, that, and the other. So how do you get your education? How do you get your updates and certifications, things like that? So our throat trainer comes in a Pelican case, and so you just shove it in the mail and send it to student number one. And when they do it, they hose it down with Lysol and send it off to student number two. And the SLP director would be walking them through virtually, but the student was hands on with a physical patient, and that just changed everything. Where now university programs are saying, okay, do you want the option of being virtual? Do you want the option of being at the school? You have to be in the school for this class or this class, but all the other stuff you can do online, which allows you to still have the haptics, the hands-on with a patient, which is critical. So you're not behind. You're not book smart, but experience not. And so our models allow for education to come anywhere at any time. And one thing that I've seen a lot in clinics, you all compete with maybe ENT departments, and so lab space is tough because other programs might have seniority or something like that. Whereas our trainer, you can set up in a conference room or in the lobby or at a hotel or in the student lounge and conduct the education right then and there. So it allows for you not to be attached to an operating room or attached to a surgical simulation center. You can do it anywhere.
Yeah, the flexibility is huge, especially not knowing where you're going to be doing these different experiences. So this is really just like an add-on to the other question I asked, but something I noticed about the work that you all do, it's all custom, right? Which a lot of times when we look at different things that are being built, sometimes it's you have one product and that's it. So what I find fascinating about what you all have created is it really can evolve over time as well, because you all take a lot of feedback, because every model is shaped by the real world needs of whoever you're working with. So can you share a time where feedback helped you all to rethink or redesign something in a meaningful way based off of who you were working with?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for just a plastic model, Amazon. If you're looking for something that's haptic, that's procedural, then that's us. We have those procedures already on our website. But say you were looking for, here's something that I've I know that there's a need out there to build a pediatric throat trainer. What we would do is we haven't been asked. I know there's a need out there for it, but all we would need is an adolescent CT image or DICOM data set, and we could build that patient. So we also it is like a core business for us to not just build something and you deal with it, but to evolve with you. So as your needs change, like we got the throat trainer, it's great, but one thing I noticed, it's not that big of a deal, but what about certain pathologies? So I'm like, okay, like vocal nodes. Okay, so we'll put some nodes on there. The septal perf was a huge one, and then just something simple like, Brandon, the vocal cords aren't painted white. That's kind of critical for us. Would you mind painting them white? I'm like, yeah, I don't know why we haven't painted them before, because we hadn't been asked. And so if somebody says, hey, it's great, but can you do it this way? That's what we do.
Well, this is, I mean, this is also fascinating to me, just because I see, yeah, just so many use cases and with complex needs. So even I'm imagining right now, if every speech language pathology student or had access to a lifelike model of the vocal tract, every new grad could train on the same exact simulated airway. But I want to find out what might change in how we show up for patients, especially with those patients with complex needs based on your experience.
Yeah, I use the flight simulator example all the time because you don't want to get on an airplane and, hey, this is Captain so and so. This is my first flight. Hope it's a good one. Don't worry, I have 20,000 hours simulated, and this is the first time we're taking off in this plane. No, that would be like, if it's all about repetition and confidence building. And if you had access to a model, like, yeah, you could scope yourself all day long, or your roommate, or a colleague of yours. But there's something to be said about sitting down by yourself with this model and just playing. Like, there's been several times where I get a new endoscope and I want to just kind of play around with it. And one endoscope had a really bright light on it, and it was really hot. And I wanted to see how hot it would get, and it ended up being not good. But what was interesting is seeing what you're doing again and again and again, and going through your procedural guide and going back and forth builds confidence enough where when you see something like impassable sinusitis or rhinitis or something like that, then you can work the problem. And I think that that's what's really critical about having a resource like this is, maybe you do it your way, and then you go to your professor and say, I've been doing it this way, and they're like, okay, well, that's great, but tweak it this way or do this way, or do you know your landmarks here? What are you seeing here? And that's just critical for any education, and even just brushing up, because when you go to your first patient, you don't want to have the jiggly jiggly hand and like, don't worry, you're same thing with an airline. So yeah, I wish everyone would have one. I'll be happy to provide one for everybody. Build one for you.
Yes,
With a discount, of course.
I like the flight simulator that you stated, because it does feel like that. You're doing all of these repetitions. A lot of the things are hypothetical, or like you said, you're going into the workforce, even when you've been in the workforce for years, right? There's always going to be new use cases. Having something like this that evolves with you and you can continue brush up without having the jiggly hand, right? Yeah, when you're going, because that jiggly hand makes a difference.
Well, I mean, think about it even from, even in a clinic situation.
Yeah.
Uh, I've seen ENT offices where the new person is going to give an evaluation, and their last job was working at Burger King. It happens,
Mm-hmm.
and for an office to be able to train somebody just to say, okay, what do you see, or just to supplement the ENT, um, why not? I mean, we're talking about outcomes here. We're talking about safety. We're talking about, um, training somebody in an office that wasn't maybe not supposed to be doing what they're doing, but is doing it. But there's all kinds of situations, and all of this happens. And everyone knows that this happens. But yeah, so it's just a smart idea.
Yeah, definitely. The safety is huge, and having the confidence and the tools to be able to train. And yeah, it's huge. So what about for anyone who's listening, who's curious now about bringing PHACON to their setting, how can they learn more? And I also want to know if there are any upcoming projects
Mm.
or tools or technology you all may have released that we weren't able to share.
Well, definitely go to FACON period US. So FACON.us is our website. You can certainly email me, Brandon period Gehrmann at FACON.us. Yeah, and reference this, and I'll be happy to give you all a discount on for watching this, because this has been fun and entertaining and informative. Um, what's some really cool projects? Well, if anybody would like to have a pediatric throat trainer, please call me because we'd love to be able to build one. Because we can't just take an adult patient and shrink it down. The anatomy is completely different. But that is something that's not on the market now, and would love to be able to bring that to market. Um, but some of the interesting projects that we have, we're working with a medical device company because they have an endoscope to remove calcium deposits with inside the breast. And so it goes in a breastal duct. And that's the most incredible thing ever, to have a microscope that small. But it's evolved. That project has evolved to go into the saliva glands in your mouth. So when those get clogged, to be able to go in and remove it. And that trainer is in the process, but we're maybe to by third quarter we'll have it to market. But yeah, always, if you can dream it, it's like Field of Dreams. If you can dream it, we can build it, and they will come.
Well, with that being said, Brandon, thank you for sharing not just the tools and technology behind your work, but also your purpose, your heart. You are passionate about what it is that you do. And we are grateful that you were able to take the time to share with us. You reminded us really that meaningful training doesn't have to wait for a live person or patient or perfect conditions. With the right tools, we really can prepare more confidently, care more effectively and safely, and create opportunities that reach more people wherever they are. So, to our listeners, whether you're a surgeon, a student, a health provider, simply someone who believes in better ways to learn and care, thank you for being here. And let's keep building spaces where learning feels real, care is connected, and innovation is rooted in purpose. Until next time, stay interconnected.